Hey, what's up guys? My name's Jamie Fenn. Today you're gonna learn how to do a Superman transition. Now, I call it the Superman transition because I don't know what to call it, but it reminds me of if Superman was flying as the camera and then could like go into the camera, into the screen or the phone or whatever you want to call it. Now, in order to do this transition, you're going to need some type of gimbal. I'm using the DJI Ronin S with a GH5 shooting in 4K at 60 frames a second with a wide angle lens. As you can see, you're gonna have to be able to aim in front of the screen that you're gonna try to shoot and then pull back gently and simultaneously pull back on the stick or push forward, however you have your electronic gimbal modified. And you're gonna slowly pull back and keep your subject in focus. Now, the smoother you do this, the easier it is to edit in post and the smoother it will look. So let's jump over into Davinci Resolve, the free version. There's also a paid version you can get, but the free one is pretty amazing. It has so many features and the coloring options and the tracking and just the way you can get your workflow done is just incredible. Go ahead and download it and follow along. Thanks. All right. Well, welcome to Davinci Resolve. I usually do tutorials in Final Cut Pro, but I've kind of gravitated towards Davinci. Now, if you have never used Davinci before, I'm just going to go over it real quick. When you open it, you start a new project, and you have your media tab over here, your edit, then your fusion, which is like visual effects, then color, audio, and then export. So you can just drag in your files, or you can locate the folder on your computer and select which ones you want to have in your timeline. You right click and you add into media pool, which is down here. Then once you have those clips selected, you want to use them all together in a timeline. So you're going to right click and create new timeline, create new timeline using selected clips. Now, I've already done all this, so you go to your edit tab next. Now, you want to take whatever shot you're going to use for the green screen. And first of all, you have to make sure that the computer has a green screen on it. Also, one thing I did not have was the tracking markers. Now, if you find an image or a video that has tracking markers, make sure the tracking markers are like white or something similar to green. If they're black and white, they're just really hard to remove. So let's go ahead and start with this clip, okay? You have to not obviously, but you have to drag it into your timeline. So click on your media pool over here, locate that clip, drag it in, and select it. Now, this is important because you have to make sure you do your coloring on each of the videos before you actually do this effect, or else you're going to end up doing the coloring on the whole clip, including the clip inside this green screen. And if you want to have a different look for that, you're going to need to edit them differently. So I've already gone ahead and colored this one, and I'm not going to necessarily describe on how to color, so that's something you're going to have to figure it out on your own. And then you also have to make sure you have a clip that you're doing that's colored as well in your timeline, which is going to be this one. So go to your timeline, select the clip that you need to start with. And the first thing we did is we shot this normally like this, right? So it's pulling back away from the screen and the subject. So what we want to do is just reverse it. So right click on that clip, come up and click on change clip speed and click on reverse speed. Great. So now it looks like we're coming in, we're zooming in, and we're Superman, woo, but not yet. Okay, I'm going to shorten this up a little bit. So the next thing we want to do is grab the clip that we want to put in that green screen. So now that we have this clip here and the clip that's going to go inside of the green screen, one thing we want to have for sure is the amount of time that we want to use this clip for. So select the part that you want to use and put it over the whole timeline of the clip that you're going to be tracking and greening and delta keying out. You can click D to deactivate and activate the clip. Now we're going to create a new Fusion clip. Now by doing that, you're going to hold down Shift and click on both these clips. Oh, and one more thing, which is very important, have the clip have a tail end after and trim it. So you push B, click on the trim. That's very important because when you want to transition into the actual clip, you have to make sure that that's there and the timing won't get messed up. So let's go back to holding Shift, click on both clips, right click on a clip and click New Fusion Clip. Now select this clip, click on the timeline, select this clip, go into your Fusion tab, and holy moly, what do we have here? Well, this is a very difficult and kind of confusing workflow, but once you start doing it a bunch, it kind of makes sense. So the first thing we want to do is track this clip in the viewer window number 2. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have to go to the end of the clip because that's where we're going to start our track, and you can go back and forth by using the arrow keys, and go to the very last frame and click on the media. With that clip selected, hold Shift and click spacebar and click and type planner tracker. Now, this is going to allow us to put this image in the screen and also make it look normal so it doesn't look all distorted or glitchy or any of that nonsense. You're going to want to hold Command and zoom in by scrolling up and down on the wheel, and you can also adjust the windows here. Go ahead and click around the screen that you want to track. Then the next settings for our tracker that we want to set is setting this to hybrid point. Also selecting TRS and shear for motion type. And since we're already on our last frame of the clip, we want to set this as our reference frame. The tracker needs a reference frame to work from. So let's click set. Then we're going to come down to this arrow and we're going to track backwards. Now sometimes this works well with the track channel Luma selected, and also it works really well with green selected. So go ahead and click track and let it run its course. Sometimes what happens is when you click this as well, this little line with the red bar vertically scrolling left on the screen will just sometimes go super fast and it pretends like it knows what it's doing. So you sometimes have to click stop and just double check to see if the tracking is actually doing its job. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. It takes a few tries sometimes. So I'm just going to go click back and whoa, see how it's doing something crazy? So I can come back here with the arrow keys and click on this, which is going to delete all the data here, and click OK. Come back. Maybe I'll select green. Let's just see how that works. Maybe it'll work a little bit better. Yeah, see, it's working pretty well now. And all right, that's where it's going to end the track. Now the next thing we have to do is come down to our nodes. I'm going to get rid of our media pool. That way we can see everything. I'm going to come down to the nodes and I'm going to disconnect by double clicking on these and just dragging this to the media out. Now I want to put this clip, which is I clicked 1, I want to put it in this window and I want to pin the corners so it has the same amount of perspective to the corners. So I'm going to come up here to the operation mode and select corner pin. Now it brings up like a funky box, but you can click on the corners, and what I do is I go right outside the green screen, and then that way I can make sure that it fills that window. I'm going to bring this media up here, and I'm going to drag and drop it down onto the planner tracker. See how that works? Pretty cool, huh? See, now it's stuck to the screen. But there's a few things wrong with that. One, it's just on top of the screen, and two, it's upside down. So how do we fix that? Well, we have to create a merge node. And what that does is that allows me to put a delta keyer and another layer and basically sandwich this video into itself. So what we're going to do now is drag the median. We're going to switcheroo these guys. Okay. So we're going to have this guy go in the bottom here. But now this I want to layer on itself. So I'm going to pull this over here and drag this onto this merge node. And then drag the tracker so it's merging with this one, and then putting that on our media out. So now one thing I have to do as well now is, since this merge node is creating two layers, see how that's on top? I have to key out the green screen. So I'm going to click on this media node, hold shift, click spacebar, and type in delta keyer. I'm going to click add. I'm going to click on that delta keyer and hold shift and make sure it goes in between the media and the merge node. Okay? Then the next thing I want to do is click on background color up here on this teardropper, hold down on my mouse and drag over to the window that's green screened. Wow, look at that. It's looking pretty good. Still there. Check it out. See, now it looks like it's inside the computer. But there's one thing we have to do now. And we have to flip this and make sure it looks like she's viewing it normally. So how do we do that? Well, we have to flip this node that's inside everything. So I'm going to come in here and click on that media. And I'm going to hold shift, spacebar again, and type in transform. Now what that's going to allow me to do is flip this video 180 degrees. So I click on transform, come over to angle, delete these numbers and type in 180. And boom, look at that. All right, so now we have our composite done. But now is when I'm going to show you how to do the most important part. But these order of operations are critical, because if you don't do it this way, it may be possible to do the tracking and the things after you do the automation of the spinning of the clip and zooming in. It's just very difficult for the tracker to actually do its job. I figured out, and it took me honestly days to try to figure out the best way to go about this to show you guys. Just make sure you do everything the same order as I am right now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to hop back over into our edit tab. But now we have to do the Superman effect. Now, this is how I did it. I scrolled the timeline until the camera started to actually tilt down. And that's where I kind of stopped the zoom. Because when you zoom in and you rotate this footage, without the zoom, you're going to have these black bars on the sides. And it's going to look like crap. So you got to zoom in far enough on the 4K footage so it doesn't show black bars on the side. So what I did was I started a keyframe right when it started to pitch down for the zoom over here. I clicked on the keyframe and then I went to the very beginning. I clicked on the keyframe. And then I click on this arrow to go back to that keyframe, and I zoomed in to like 1.5, 1.5, maybe even 2. So that way it slowly zooms in as I'm coming into it. So it doesn't look too different from just normally walking up or walking away, I guess technically. And then as soon as the camera starts to pitch down, I go to that keyframe that I set right here by clicking on the arrows to go back and forth on the keyframes. And I started my rotation. So now I'm going to click on my keyframe for the rotation. And then I'm going to go scroll through more until I get down to the computer screen. And it's tilted almost perfectly about right there. I'm going to click another keyframe for the angle. and I'm going to click on the numbers and type in 180 because the whole screen is going to do a 180. Boom. Okay. So now, as you can see those black bars? They still showed up. So I'm going to have to zoom in more. But you can see this is the effect coming into play, right? Pretty nifty. And okay, cool. So how do we fix those black bars? Well, what's awesome about Davinci, and you can do this in Final Cut and Adobe, but you can come down here and click on this line dot thing that shows automation. I'm not sure what it's called, so I just kind of called it that. So you can come down here and you can hover your mouse over the keyframes that you've selected and that you've used so far. And so it shows zoom, right? So I'm going to drag back and go to where the most black is shown. And I'm just going to zoom up even more. More. Maybe even to like there. And I can put some output blanking, which are those bars that will kind of cover up the black bars that will come from the frame being zoomed a little too far out. But this looks pretty good. Yeah, it actually looks really good. But what's cool now is that I can set another keyframe and kind of play with this and get it to the way I want it so it doesn't look too unnatural, like it's too robotic. And if you want to smooth out these points so they're not so linear, you can select a point, right click on it, and click ease in and out. You can also do that on any keyframe. You can also ease in or ease out. It's up to you. So now this eases in. Excuse the playback. It's kind of rough, but you get the idea. So now what kind of bugs me is that how this screen isn't flush and straight with the top of the computer screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and just change that rotation angle on that keyframe. Just maybe a little bit, like a few degrees in like that. I'm also going to ease this in and ease this in and or out. And now this should be a pretty almost complete transition. But how do we get the video to go from the computer screen to just showing a video? Well, that's where you have to come in and zoom in with more keyframes to transition into the other clip. But what's really difficult is that the tracker in the screen isn't exactly precise. So there's actually a really cool transition that is stock in this program that I found that's actually really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go to the very last keyframe or the very last frame of this clip, and I'm going to zoom as far as I can until it basically kind of fills up the screen. Now, it's obviously not centered, so you're going to have to actually come in here and do some modifications to the way you need to in order to get this video on the computer as close as possible to what you're going to see. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to have to adjust the position of the y-axis a little bit. Just to kind of get it to be centered as perfectly as possible. And then now I'm going to have this transition into that. I'm going to come over here to my smooth cut. I'm going to drag it between those two. And I'm going to change that smooth cut to 12 frames. Actually, I'm not going to change it at all. And it should there you go. It looks kind of distorted at first, but when you walk through it, it kind of stretches it and it kind of makes it work. And it's actually like the coolest transition stock effect I've come across in a long time. If you want to try to match up the feet a little bit better and quicker, you can spend more time on doing that. I did that on the first original one. That way it's not too off. Like she's about to take a step, so I could go maybe like a few frames back. She's about to take a step and land her foot down, so right there. I just click and drag that smooth cut on top of that. And it should look pretty seamless. Yep. And it can be even quicker if you want it to be. That way it doesn't look so blurry. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, so that's how you do it. If you guys like it, hit that subscribe button. I like doing technical transitions, so if you have any suggestions, definitely shoot me a link below. Find me on Instagram. My name's Jamie_Fenn. And thanks so much for making it this far. I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.